All right, thank you, Nicole. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the September 25th, 2024 City of Asheville Multimodal Transportation Commission meeting. My name is Jack Eigelman, and I'm the chair of this group. Our meetings continue to be held virtually, but there are many ways for interested parties to participate in this gathering. The City of Asheville's Engagement Hub, which includes a variety of links and phone numbers, can be found on the MMTC page of the City of Asheville's website. Visiting the page is the best way to take part in our virtual meetings. Members, staff, and guests, please remember to keep your microphones muted at all times. So when you're not speaking, we can minimize feedback and other background noises. So welcome back, everyone. I'd like to welcome first our commission members to the meeting. Members, when I call your name, if you would introduce yourself and let us know what interests you represent. And we'll start out with Vice Chair Armstrong.
Howdy, I'm Kenny. I'm an at-large member. It's my second term, full term on the Multimodal Transportation Commission. And like Jack said, I'm the vice chair.
Joseph Chesler.
Yes, good afternoon. Joe Chesler from West Asheville. I'm a liaison to the Transit Committee as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Leanna Joyner.
Hi there, Leanna Joyner. I sit on and represent the Active Transportation Committee to the Commission, and glad to be here. Sorry, I am having trouble being there with my face, but fully here.
Great. Thanks, Leanna. Bill Loftus.
Hey there, I'm Bill Loftus, and I sit on the Transit Committee.
Welcome, Bill. Elise Martyr.
Hi, my name's Elise Martyr. I am an at-large representative.
Thanks, Elise. And Kate Ryba sends her regrets. Kate was injured in a mountain biking accident, and she is recovering and unable to be here. So she sends her regrets, and I wish her a speedy recovery. And Randy Warren.
Yeah, hi, Randy Warren. Sorry, I updated some drivers and my camera's not working, but I can see you guys. And I'm in the Toronto Public Library right now, so I'm gonna kind of keep it quiet today as much as I can. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Randy. And Mike Zukowski, are you here, Mike? I haven't seen you log in. Okay, Mike's not here, so we have 7 of 9 members, which gives us a quorum today on anything that we may vote on. And I'd also like to welcome our non-voting commission members. We'll start with Jake Smith. Jake, you want to introduce yourself? Jake was here. You may be on mute. Jake, are you out there? Okay, he may have disappeared. How about Jared? Jared, I see you somewhere. Jared Wheatley.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Jared Wheatley. I'm liaison to Planning and Zoning Commission.
Awesome, Jared. Thanks for joining us. Maggie Ullman, our city council liaison, will be running a bit late, but will join us shortly. Jake, are you back in? Jake's microphone is not working. So Jake, when you let us know when you get back on, but it sounds like you can hear us. I'd also like to welcome, we have a number of guests at this meeting. Jamie Matthews joins us from the city manager's office. A number of transportation staff, including Lucy, Nicole, Chris Cairns, Haley Burton, and Anna Sexton will be joining us. And Brendan Merrithew. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Brendan. Pardon me if I'm not. We'll get that corrected. And a number of his staff members, co-workers from the NCDOT. So welcome, everyone. Like to start out by approving the September 25th, 2024 agenda. would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move, Jack. It's Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Any second?
Elise,
Leanna,
second.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Elise seconds. Is there any discussion or any changes that need to happen?
Just checking if my audio is working now.
Oh, okay. Hey, Jake. We'll do a quick introduction. We're going to vote on the agenda, then we'll give you a minute to introduce yourself. Okay, we will vote now on approving the agenda. Committee members, when I say your name, please say aye or nay. Kenny,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Leanna,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Randy,
Aye.
and I am an aye, so the motion carries. Jake, will go a little bit out of order. You want to just give a quick introduction to your role here?
Sure. My name is Jake Smith. I am a non-voting member with the Neighborhood Advisory Committee residing in 28804. I enjoy cycling and general outdoor activities.
All right, welcome, Jake. Y'all, are there any edits, additions, or comments to the August 28th, 2024 minutes? That was our last meeting.
This is Elise. I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Elise. Is there a second?
Leanna, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Leanna. And we'll vote on the item. So when I say your name, aye or nay. Kenny
Aye.
and Joe. Joe Chesler. Thanks,
Aye.
Joe. Leanna,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Randy,
Aye.
and I am an aye, so the motion carries. I just want to confirm, Mike Zukowski, you are not in the meeting still. Is that correct? Take the silence as a no. Okay, folks, we will move on to public comment. Nicole, are there any public comments that I didn't receive that we need to share?
No, sir, none received.
Jared, I believe you had a public comment you wanted to share.
That is correct. I am traveling actually down the road right now. Is there any way I could save my public comment for the announcements section?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
We'll, if no one's opposed, we'll maybe switch the agenda slightly, moving announcements up and public comment down. Is anyone opposed to doing that? I do want to mention one thing as we dive into this is I'd like to just reinforce when we have a public comment or an announcement, we won't entertain discussion. However, if you're interested in discussing a particular comment or an announcement further, I would encourage you to make a motion to add it to a future agenda. And so that's how we'll sort of manage our meeting to make sure we don't get lost in a discussion that's not necessarily on the agenda. And we followed through on that last time, as you'll notice, with the to talk about traffic calming on Sulphur Springs. That came out of a public comment and a motion to add that to the agenda. We do have some announcements, and Elise, you wanted to give us an update on the canceled neighborhood event. You want to fill us in briefly on what's going on?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. So very unfortunately, the planning committee for the Festival of Neighborhoods had to make the decision to cancel the festival Saturday before last, whenever that was, due to some inclement weather that was predicted. and there was not an alternate rain date that was scheduled for that event. But after inquiring with the neighborhoods who had indicated that they would participate and the vendors that would participate, it does look like there is a lot of interest in rescheduling the event for the spring. So at our NAC meeting on Monday, the group there did vote to reschedule the event to the spring. It will either be the last Saturday in April or the first Saturday in May, but that is to be determined. And so I just wanted to give everyone an update on that.
Yeah, thanks, Elise. That's a bummer. I was sorry to see that, but I know it's a tough call when you've got weather coming in. I know the amount of work y'all and folks have put into that event, which is an important one. Were there any other announcements? I feel like someone else sent me an email. I apologize if I'm not calling on you. Who else has an announcement? I wanted to make, oh yeah, Jake, go ahead.
I'd actually just got an email from our city representative from the Neighborhood Advisory Committee. There was a fire prevention kickoff event that was scheduled this Saturday at Tangier Outlets, and it's been canceled now due to the incoming weather.
Probably a good choice. Again, it sounds like it's going to be wet. Hoping everyone stays safe on the roads. I do have one announcement that I'd like to share. I wanted to just throw out there our communication standard among MMTC members. I have one concern. Oftentimes, I really appreciate, first of all, I'd like to say I really appreciate the hard work that everyone does outside of the committee. It's a highly engaged group. I don't know if other commissions, I don't know if other commissions are like this, but y'all are doing big lifts outside. Sometimes I get a little bit confused on the flow of emails. Sometimes I'm included on the flow of emails. Sometimes I'm not. And I also want to just raise concerns as we request various things from city staff. I want to recognize the load that they have in doing their daily job. So I wanted to encourage folks as our goal as a commission is to move important ideas forward to improve our transportation network, whether it has to do with transit or greenways or bicycling. And I want to just encourage folks, as you have requests to the city, if you have other concerns, you are obviously more than welcome to email whoever you like. You are still volunteers and citizens, and I encourage you to send emails to whomever you like. But I would encourage you to send those emails through Kenny and I, so that Kenny and I can vet them, so that we can figure out the best course of action and make sure that your important items don't get left off of future agenda items. So if it's something that you feel like is urgent, you all make the best choice. But I want to encourage folks to send things through Kenny and I so we can keep track and make, as we build the agenda with city staff, we're including the appropriate things and not leaving things out. So I'd like to move back up to public comment. Jared, looks like you're out of your car.
Just barely made it. The roads are working. Well, I appreciate everyone providing some space here. What I would like to do and what I had requested is an opportunity to read Planning and Zoning Commission's newly adopted land acknowledgement. It's also working through the process to have a proposed amendment to the city's comprehensive plan come forward. So I'll read that at this time. As we are gathering today as the Planning and Zoning Commission, the body tasked with reviewing and advising on appropriate land use in the city of Asheville, it is fitting to acknowledge the storied history of this land. We occupy the land of the Cherokee people who have stewarded and been in relationship with these mountains and waterways from time immemorial. This land is occupied through violence, oppression, coercion, broken treaties, and forced relocation. Please join me in expressing respect and gratitude for the present day Eastern Band of Cherokee, the Cherokee Nation, and the United Kituwa Band of Cherokee, and all of our Indigenous neighbors, as well as the past and present marginalized community members, as we seek to join in the healing of the indelible traumas that are embedded in this land.
Thanks, Jared. And that was, can you clarify, that was adopted by the planning and zoning?
Yeah, that's correct. So we adopted this, I believe it was 4 months ago it was adopted. And at the latest meeting, there was a motion made by our chair and adopted by the commission to begin the process of working towards an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan to have it included. Presently, the comprehensive plan includes a poem by Dwayne Barton that functions to acknowledge the diverse communities within the city of Asheville. And it seems fitting to ensure that we go ahead and align our city's ambition for equity and inclusion to include the land acknowledgement, which is also practiced within Buncombe County's comprehensive plan.
Thanks for clarifying, Jared.
For those who don't know, I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, and I'm also the only sitting board member who is registered citizen of a federally recognized nation. So that's why kind of this is a really important contribution for me sitting on these boards. My grandfather was also a survivor of the boarding schools, and what it means to be a citizen of the Cherokee Nation is that, you know, my family survived the removal from this land and what's, you know, commonly called the Trail of Tears.
Thanks, Jared. Is there any action that anyone wants to make to follow up with Jared's comment?
Yeah, if nobody jumps in. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Elise,
Yep.
and then Kenny.
Oh, I was just going to say that I've also noticed, I was listening to the Human Relations Commission meeting the other day, and they also included a land acknowledgement at the beginning of their meeting. So I don't know if this is something that the like the city generally might be trying to encourage its boards and commissions to do, or if just we as a board want to maybe at a future meeting consider whether or not we would like to include that at the start of our meetings.
Yeah, this is not open for discussion now, but I would entertain a motion to add it to a future agenda to discuss further. Kenny?
That's what I was going to do. I was going to move that we add it to our agenda for the next meeting and have a open discussion about it and come to some kind of agreement.
Yeah, so Kenny's making a motion to discuss. Randy, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion or questions about the motion? Okay, we'll take a vote on the motion to add a discussion of a land acknowledgement statement at a future meeting. All in favor, Kenny?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Leanna?
aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
And Randy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we'll add that to a future agenda. And I don't mean to squash discussion about it, but I want to follow that process. So we're moving things forward in a thoughtful way and giving people an opportunity to think about something like this. And we'll have a discussion further. It obviously connects to transportation. But we can discuss that. So we're going to move on to new business. And our first item of business is the Asheville Transportation Bond Project. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Matthews from the city manager's office. Jamie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to give you all a general bond overview of all the bond categories, not just transportation. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all to talk about the bonds, and I'm going to share a presentation. Okay. Like Jack said, I'm Jamie Matthews, and I serve as the assistant to the city manager here in the city manager's office. So just a brief introduction. In July of this year, the council voted to place a GO bond on the November ballot. Our role as city staff moving forward is just to provide information on the bond categories and prioritize projects. The Asheville Chamber of Commerce is leading the bond advocacy efforts. So the proposed projects and categories that I'm going to share with you all today reflect community input and priorities that we have gathered in previous master planning processes, the most recent citizen survey, and with a consideration to equity and fairness across our community. All of the previous 2016 bond funds, the $74 million, have been spent, encumbered, or committed to. So just a refresher on those 2016 bonds totaling $74 million, parks for parks, transportation, and housing. What have we accomplished from that bond? So the highlights from the Parks bond, which was $17 million, is Jake Rusher Park. The Wesley Grant Southside Center had a new gym built, community spaces, outdoor courts, and a new neighborhood swimming pool. Housing bond highlights, we were able to help fund 776 new units of affordable housing. Transportation highlights, streetscaping in Haywood Street in the downtown corridor, Reed Creek Greenway extensions, and yes, the Swannanoa River Greenway started construction earlier this month. So the 2024 bond categories are similar with parks, housing, transportation, and the addition of public safety facilities totaling $80 million. So I'm going to show you all a quick video that gives an overview of the bond process and impacts to taxpayers.
In 2024, the Asheville City Council approved a general obligation bond referendum to generate $80 million for public improvement projects. The proposed bonds would be used for community investments divided into 4 categories: housing affordability, parks and recreation, transportation, and public safety facilities. Voters will vote separately on each category. The proposed projects align with the strategic focus areas adopted by the Asheville City Council. A bond is a form of debt similar to a loan. Issuing general obligation bonds is one of the safest, common ways for cities to invest in community infrastructure. And because Asheville has an excellent credit rating, the city is in a good position to issue debt and benefit from low interest on bond issues. The proposed bond program will provide the city with additional options to invest in infrastructure to meet the needs of Asheville's rapidly growing population. Infrastructure projects are typically funded through the city's capital improvement program, also known as the CIP. The city's current capital improvement program is at financial capacity, so no additional projects can be added under the current model until 2029 or later without removing projects currently in the program. Based on the city's projected debt capacity, issuing $80 million in general obligation bonds could require a 2.6 cent increase in property taxes for every $100 in valuation. The upcoming revaluation could affect these estimates slightly, but based on current rates, if approved, the bonds could increase property taxes in the city by about $110 a year, or a little more than $9 per month for a home valued at $420,946. Approved bond projects would supplement the city's current capital improvement program. The city will have 7 years to issue bonds and approximately 20 years to pay off the bonds after the funds are received. Proposed projects reflect community input and priorities gathered in community engagement efforts and the most recent National Community Survey. Each category has signature projects identified. Additional projects will be identified with equity, sustainability, current CIP projects, and opportunities to maximize state and federal funding in mind. The proposed $20 million in housing affordability bonds would provide additional support for the Housing Trust Fund, a low or no interest loan program that funds partners to make investments in affordable homes, provide down payment assistance to home buyers, home repair investments for homeowners, and purchase land and existing homes for future affordable housing. The proposed $20 million in Parks and Recreation bonds would support new dedicated pickleball courts, major improvements to the Malvern Hills Pool, Recreation Park Pool, Shiloh Community Center, and Montford Community Center, as well as improvements to outdoor courts, playgrounds, and lighting at ball fields throughout the city. The proposed $20 million in transportation bonds would support road resurfacing, sidewalk improvements, new sidewalk projects, greenways and multi-use trails, and transportation safety projects such as accessible crossings and traffic calming. The proposed $20 million in public safety facilities bonds would provide for new East Asheville Oakley Fire and Police stations that will be LEED certified, additional maintenance and improvements to existing fire and police stations and supporting facilities, and land acquisition for new and upgraded facilities. Do I have to vote for the bonds to be approved? Yes, but you don't have to vote the same way for all four. You can vote yes for some and no for others. Is there any way to vote for or against all four at once? No, you must vote on each question separately. These are the 4 general obligation bond referendum categories to be voted on by registered voters of Asheville in the general election on November 5th. For more information, visit asheville.nc.gov/2024 bond referendum.
Okay. I'd like to thank our CAPE team for putting together that video for us to help share information on the bonds. So we did share in the video some of the high level projects in each category, but we do have expanded lists that are available on the website and in flyers that we have available to hand out too. So for the transportation, here's and some additional projects that weren't mentioned that we'll be prioritizing for the bond. And I won't go through all of them, but again, this is all available online. And same for housing. I think we really hit on most of them in the video for this, but and our Parks and Rec expanded lists. And public safety facilities. I know that we mentioned that East Asheville Oakley new fire station, but we'll also be doing planning for stations in North Asheville and South Asheville, and then overall improvements to stations across the city. So that is an overview of our proposed 2024 bond projects, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I see there was one in the chat about transit, and there's, you know, the bonds can fund capital expenditures, and so we have to stick to those guidelines. And I think they're not sure if it can fund buses. Our finance director, Tony McDowell, has joined us too, who maybe could speak to that.
Jamie, can I chime in just a minute?
Yes.
Hey, folks, please don't post questions in the chat because members of the public are unable to see that. What we'll do is we'll work through a queue of questions by raising your hand. If you can keep your questions, keep it to one question, and then we'll move on to the next person and we'll rotate through. So if you have multiple questions, we'll try and make sure everyone has a voice, then come back to you. So I know sometimes we like to package multiple questions in one, but let's keep it clear and to the point, and then we'll rotate back through if that makes sense. And Randy, I'm going to give the floor to Joe since that was his question. Joe, would you phrase that question? And then Jamie, would you mind sort of re-answering it just so folks understand what the question was? Go ahead, Joe.
Thanks, Jack, and Jamie, thank you very much for that presentation. Being a liaison to the Transit Committee, I'm aware, as most of you are, of the capital needs for the ART system and the transit services citywide. I was surprised that there's no capital asks or no capital projects for transit in that list in the 20 million allocation. We have not only do we have rolling stock needs to fund, but we also have the Art Place project and the need to relocate or improve our maintenance activities. So I was just curious why there was no transit funds in that packet.
So as we prioritize projects, like I mentioned, that we're using previous plans that have been adopted, and the transit projects that you mentioned are priorities, but not, from my understanding, not quite ready for this bond. Our goal is to get on a more regular bond cycle. Because we do have so many capital needs that you mentioned. So this will not be the final bond that we will be doing. We're hoping, again, to get more on that regular cycle because we do have a lot of need in the community.
Thanks, Jamie and Joe. Randy, you're in the queue. Your question.
Sure, mine's more of a public statement or I want to be in the public record.
Fine.
So whenever we do any public improvements to infrastructure, such as repaving, I want to make sure that it's on record that our commission wants to emphasize that the Complete Streets and Vision Zero policies should be in the forefront of every time we touch a road. So if we do a resurfacing, we need to see, is this appropriate for bike lanes to be added? Is it appropriate for share arrows to be added? Is it appropriate to have international crosswalks installed? Not just to simply do what's already there, because we're having an opportunity that's only gonna be around once every 10, 15 years when we resurface streets to improve them for bikes and pedestrian safety. So we just wanna make sure that every time we even think about doing anything to a street, because I think a lot of times it's so easy for us to give it to a contractor and they say, well, this is what's best, quote unquote, best standard practices. And it's not standard practices. It's what they're used to doing. So we need to make sure that we critically examine each one of these projects as we implement them, even if it's just a street repaving, to make sure that we do everything possible to increase the safety for bikes and pedestrians, all users of the roadway.
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Warren. Our goal is to do just that, to make sure that we're collaborating internally when projects come through so that we aren't missing those opportunities.
Thank you.
Great questions, folks. Are there any other questions for Jamie regarding the bond?
Jack, this is Maggie. I don't have a question, just apologies for being late, everyone, and I'm dialed in and happy to be here.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Maggie. That's Maggie Ullman, our City Council liaison. Glad to have you here. Yeah, any other questions or comments about the bond coming up, folks? Jamie, thank you for joining us and sharing some information about the bond.
Yeah, thank you all. And again, all of the materials and information is available on the website if you want to share with your networks. Thank you.
Great. All right. So our next item of new business is to address the public comment from Rebecca Noor Hartman regarding traffic calming for Sulphur Springs Road. This was a public comment that was sent to us by Ms. Noor Hartman regarding a speeding incident and then other concerns. We made a motion to move that to the agenda, and Chris Cairns is going to start us out on a discussion to give us an update. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Cairns, city engineer, city traffic engineer. I don't have a presentation. I can pull up the communication if it will help.
And it's also linked in the minutes, folks. So you,
right.
Pardon me, it's linked in the agenda and probably the minutes as well.
Yeah, and I see myself here as a resource to answer questions because this was brought up last meeting and there wanted to be more discussion. What I can share, and I may have shared then, but I will share what I know right now. We received within the last year 2 petitions for traffic calming on Sulphur Springs Road. Those, we did some data collection after that. We are to the point now where it marginally meets the requirements. And I believe in the past, speed humps were not allowed due to emergency response times. That can be revisited, and that is our plan right now. So, and then also after this communication was received, we went out and looked at some things. We ended up installing 2 additional speed limit signs in each direction, so 4 total on Sulphur Springs Road. And in early September, we put up radar feedback signs, one in each direction, just to remind people of the speed and let them police themselves a little bit. So that's where I am, but I'm glad to answer any questions on process or whatever questions you have.
Yeah, great, Chris. I think that's great. I love it that we're following up on this, as can perhaps be a model for other conversations. I hate to get too into the weeds on one particular project, but it might scale to the work that you all are doing around the city. So are there any questions for Chris or any comments to get this conversation going? So Elise, you're first up in the queue. Go ahead.
Thanks. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to share that at the Neighborhood Advisory Committee meeting earlier this week, that was our planning retreat meeting, and something that really floated to the top as being a topic that we really want to discuss in the next calendar year is traffic calming policy. I think that's an area where a lot of neighbors really, that's something that they're very concerned about and interested in. And there's sort of a gap, I guess, in their understanding about the process of, how streets are considered for traffic calming measures. And so I just wanted to sort of suggest that might be a good topic for NAC and MMTC to consider together in the future.
Ooh, yeah, I like that, Elise. Chris, do you want to respond to that before we go to Jared, who's next up in the queue?
Well, sure. I actually want to mention something that is directly relevant. We are planning to update the policy and have made steps internally to get our internal stakeholders involved. So that is something that will be coming in I believe in the coming year. So that I think the timing is good for that because it would be good to have that feedback. I will say that right now, the process is time intensive on our end and not a lot of time, staff time is available to put toward it. So I think that's part of the frustration on residents' part, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Jared, and then over to Randy. Jared, go ahead. You're mute.
I appreciate that clarification that we are as a city looking forward to updating the policy because it had been brought up to me before and I don't know, I think the policy is not maintained in the UDO, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Jared. It is a policy that was approved by City Council in 2014.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure if in the future it will be included in the UDO, but I think it was given to me that something like only like speed humps are maybe the only true like physical addition to a road that can be used as traffic calming. Is that correct?
Right now, as our policy and our different specifications and codes, I forget which one each of them is, but yes, speed humps and speed cushions are the two devices that are currently allowed.
Yeah,
I've heard of all kinds of ideas that used to be done, chicanes, chokes, street chokes, and all that. But I mean, those things can be addressed in the future update. I will say that it's hard to keep up with just the two items. And if we start adding to the menu, it makes it even more difficult. So I think ultimately our goal is to make traffic calming easier and more efficient to get as residents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that would just be what I would implore is that, you know, there might be different fits for different neighborhoods. And so though it is hard to track maybe multiple different tools, I'm really interested to see how it progresses just because for, you know, certain areas, they may not want speed humps or cushions. They may have a different idea. And if they can propose that and it's low cost, it may be both a better fit for the neighborhood and easier to attain for the city.
Thanks, Jared. Randy.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Chris, too. Chris, I wonder, is the update of the policy the one that determines what implements can be used for speed calming, or is it? Because I know the city council approved it, but it was proposed by. Because I wanted to follow up on Jared saying that there are other tools, and I totally understand that it's difficult to keep up with what you have now, and adding more might make it more difficult. But at the same time, we shouldn't, in my opinion, limit ourselves to just a couple of different tools when there's more available. But is that something that comes from the Department of Transportation, or is it something that comes from someplace else?
It could be in the policy. I really don't know what to expect with the policy, but yeah, that's something that will be discussed during the process, during the update. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it that really people aren't aware of, but I mean, just as an example, that any speed hump or cushion, anything raised has to be approved by both the fire department and the traffic engineer, or it's specifically illegal, and that is in code. So any raised device.
Yeah, so I guess I know this is a hot topic for a lot of different people, and I think that if we can involve people both in the creation of the policy, which I know is more cumbersome on your side, but at the same time, like you said, it's been 10 years since this has been updated, and so it may be 10 more years. And then also too, perhaps the evaluation may take advantage of some volunteer resources that are available as well, because neighborhoods are passionate about this issue as well as other types of advocates, and maybe they could take away a little bit of the workload from the department on a volunteer basis to be able to help make this more appropriate for each individual situation.
I like that idea, Randy. And you know, one of the things that we're thinking about, or on our end, is making the whole process more equitable, not just the folks that are the loudest. We want every neighborhood to have access to this, and so I guess I'd like where you're coming from there, Randy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Randy. Finish.
Oh, I just wanted to thank Chris. I appreciate it and look forward to walking with you along this process too.
And to Elisa's point, and really connects with Randy and Jared's as well, during our during our retreat back in January and February, and I know our commission members know this, but for any public that are tuned in, for context, is we identified 4 work areas in 2024 that we felt like was most important, including the implementation of the GAP plan, improvements to transit, supporting and giving input on current projects and policies, and finally, traffic calming policies. So this has been an issue that's important to us. And I think also a great opportunity to collaborate rather than the neighborhood commission working independently on it. We should probably collaborate. Probably there are some good ideas that can come out of this. And Chris, can you clarify, just coming back again to what the rollout might be and the timing and some of the barriers? I know there will be a public process involved, so we're making sure that people have input on how the policy is created. Can you just shape the timeline? And I realize you all are juggling a lot, and maybe even more if the bond should pass, but give us can you clarify that a little bit?
Only a little bit, because we are actually getting help from somebody in our transportation planning group who is better at policy type things. I think what our plan is later this calendar year is to put out something for some consulting help, mostly to help bring together all the ideas, but also to organize public input and stakeholder input. So that is definitely an important part of the process. So that I expect that would start coming in the next calendar year.
Okay, is there any work? Well, I'd like to ask: is there any work that we can do to help push the needle forward? Obviously, I don't want to work out of order, but what would you advise us as a commission to do, since this is where it is a pressure point from the public to us, and figuring out how to be as responsive as possible given the constraints? What would you suggest?
Well, for the policy update, I think it's got as much momentum as it can, so I don't have any suggestions for that. I will say patience with the current process. I think there's a perception that people can call and have traffic calming in the next month. It is a years-long process, even in the best case right now. So I think people see traffic calming as a panacea. It is a great tool, and I want speeds lower as much as anybody, but it's just not something that can happen instantly. So it can't happen for everybody. So I think just sharing that sentiment with folks is like and there are times that we need help getting folks to put take out the petition for a neighborhood. Usually we have that person from the beginning, not always though. And then when it comes to time to actually implement, we need help talking with folks. Are you okay with traffic calming in front of your house? Are you not? That kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of different points of public interaction along the process where any help is appreciated.
Yeah, great. Well, look to us as providing input and supporting in any way, that makes sense. Are there any other comments, questions for Chris before we move on? Kenny Armstrong.
Yeah, just thanks, Chris, for your work lowering speed limits around town. I feel like that's kind of a first step, because the threshold to get traffic calming relative to how fast cars are going based on the speed, but also the speed limit. So I think that's a really good change. That'll be helpful. And also bond money for new fire stations could maybe diversify, how our public response times are affected by speed humps in certain neighborhoods. And so there's a lot going on that can affect the policy.
That's a real good point, Kenny. And I will say on the response times, the speed cushions have opened up some streets that were previously not, they did not qualify because of the response times, and speed cushions made that happen.
Thanks, Kenny and Chris. Any other comments, y'all, before we move on?
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We're glad to have you here. Thank you for sharing and addressing it. Our next item under new business is to recap last month's work session at the Burton Street Community Center, and Jack Eigelman, myself, I'm going to take that one. Okay, Jared's stepping out. Thanks, Jared, for joining us. He has a P&Z meeting that he's going to jump in on. And yeah, I wanted an opportunity. Last month, folks who aren't aware, we held a work meeting at the Burton Street Community Center in lieu of our regular MMTC meeting instead of holding it virtually. This is an idea that came out of our retreat. So we can see eye to eye, we can work together, have richer discussions, perhaps invite the public to join us. And so the second one, we did our retreat in January and February. That was 2 4-hour meetings. We did one in May, which we held publicly, and the last one in August at the Burton Street Community Center. So, you know, I wanted to open the floor to any thoughts or comments of, you know, looking ahead, how that event went, whether we should continue to do them. If we do continue to do them, how might we make them more effective and engaging? And then finally, when would we do our next one? You know, falling in November might be a little bit tricky given the Thanksgiving holiday, and of course, December is also tricky. So I'll just open the floor if anyone has any thoughts, and we'll take it from there. Bill.
Yeah, I just want to put in my 2 cents. I thought it was very good to be in person. You just get closer. Somehow it just rubs better. So I think it's valuable to meet in person. Unfortunately, we don't have the technology to do both yet, but I think an occasional in-person meeting is very valuable. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Elise.
Yeah, I agree. I've been loving the occasional in-person meetings, and actually NAC is going to borrow that idea and start doing that as well. And that's kind of what we intend. We intend to have a meeting like that to do our traffic calming policy discussion. So as far as like how to improve or make them more engaging, honestly, I feel like what we've done so far has been spot on, and don't have any other suggestions to offer.
Yeah, good. That's great. I think this idea, I probably should feel like I should credit Jake for kind of pitching the idea of doing this. I think it came out of an in-person meeting. Yeah, Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, though I missed the meeting last month, I still am a huge fan of meeting in person. We had our semi-monthly NAC meeting on Monday, and it was decided that we would go back from every other month to meeting once a month, because we all felt like that was more productive to meet in person once a month rather than every other month. So it just shows that at least a decent portion of certain groups will enjoy meeting in person.
We did have a couple of community. Oh yeah, go ahead. Leanna, is that you?
It's Maggie. I don't have a hand raising function for my phone. I love them. I've been finding it really nice. Like, I kind of call what we've been doing peer learning. You know, a lot of the business meetings were seeing reports from staff, but this is the time for us to all familiarize ourselves with good information and gets a lot of juices flowing, and I really like them. One idea, for maybe not every time, but there's been a lot of ideas increasingly about collaborating with other committees like NAC or P&Z or, I don't know, Tree Commission. Like, there's different ways. And so if we're going to ever have something where we're pulling multiple groups together, that's more appropriate to be the full committee as opposed to small work groups. That that might be an idea to fold in for those quarterly meetings for whenever they come up. Hey, is there something that we want to do with NAC in person? Maybe that's the time. So just an idea that it also could be a cross committee collaboration inflection point as one of the meeting styles in the toolbox that you have.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. There's obviously incredible overlap between the work that we're doing as commissions, which we seem to, because we're volunteers, probably, miss a lot of those opportunities. Randy, go ahead. The floor is yours. Your hand's up.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I know I said I wouldn't talk as much today, and hopefully I'm not bothering people around me too much. But
okay.
But so I think the in-person is super important if we can do it, and I understand the constraints and that too. But the quarterly way is great to do it. I felt like the last meeting was more updates and a chance to give some input, but it was more just like updates. And I feel like updates are sometimes better served in a function like this. We can do updates easily online. Yeah. And I feel like in person, I'd like to have more meaty stuff, more stuff that we can actually dive into and draw on the maps or give ideas or experience. Because that's a chance for a wide variety of really, really good experiences to come and offer some assistance to staff. Because we have such good experience on this group that just updates in that kind of meeting feels like we're not utilizing our time as best as we possibly can. But to really dig into stuff where we can say, hey, where have you seen a project like this before, or what can we really do to significantly impact these plans? Not just to be updated and make a casual comment or two, but to really make us a resource. Utilize us as a resource that we can make a bigger difference. And being a person to be able to do that nitty gritty kind of stuff and see people cringe when you make a comment or really agreeing within that too is much more effective in person. So I think we should ideally keep that in mind as we continue to look to structuring these in-person meetings.
Yeah, great feedback. Great thought. Others? Yeah, Elise.
Can we do one in January maybe?
Yeah, I'll put that to the group. Does that seem like the logical next public meeting to folks? Some thumbs up are coming up, Joe and Randy. I think that makes sense.
When do we usually do the retreat?
January is when we did it. I don't know whether we were breaking precedent, but yeah, I think January makes a lot of sense. Maybe let's earmark that. And maybe finalize that here in a bit. Any topics? Can we just throw out a few potential topics of what we might potentially? We did transit in May. This last meeting was more a focus on various greenway, I guess bike ped projects, really greenways. What might we look at in January to focus in? We don't have to decide now, but are there any burning ideas? Randy?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is, just because we were talking about traffic calming, and I know Chris is trying to move that forward as quickly as possible, but I would love it if we would have, and it maybe do this not in an MTC, but a separate meeting, but if we could all do a traffic calming meeting for that, like where we all bring our best experiences with traffic calming from around the country and around the world, and Chris can have a meaty discussion with Chris and the staff and saying, hey, which of these resources are unreasonable for our community, which ones are ones that could be used on an occasional basis, which ones could be never used, which ones could be used all the time, and how much does it cost for these, and what's this, it would be that kind of in-depth meeting, because otherwise we leave it all up to Chris maybe, saying, what have you seen? What do you want to do? And he's one person. He only has so much experience as he can have. But if we can say, here's all these different options or resources, or why can't we do these things? Why can't we do something like that? To me, would be a really good, valuable use of our time, and hopefully move that project, which Chris is struggling with having enough time to devote to it. Really, if we could do a focused several-hour meeting about something that maybe could be a couple weeks worth of work that he would do on an occasional basis all at once.
And I would say too, I think what I'm hearing from Chris, and I don't want to speak for him, but it's very difficult to communicate with the public the complexity of traffic calming. Stop signs are great, but they don't work. There are many trade-offs that are involved. I shouldn't say what works and what doesn't work. Let retract or cross that statement off. But I think my point is there's a lot of complexity, time involved, trade-offs involved with traffic calming. This could be a great opportunity to share with the public some of those complexities. And I think that could also be a great outcome. So I do like the idea potentially of, I don't think we should commit yet to that, but I do love the idea of leaning into that. Other thoughts or other comments? Yeah, back to you, Elise.
Maybe sidewalks. Like so far we've talked about transit, we've talked about greenways, and now we do like roads and sidewalks. We kind of come full circle on what all the different multi-modes are.
Yeah, great idea. Don't hesitate, y'all, to send me an email if you have other suggestions or thoughts. But what I've noticed is that maybe we'll look towards January for our next public work meeting, in which the public is invited to join us, in which we get some face-to-face work done. Yeah, Kenny.
We talked a little bit about how to get even more general people involved from the public. I think if you kind of frame it as a discussion about traffic calming, you'll get a lot of folks who might want to come and give comment and just be a part of that meeting. Another topic is, sorry, go ahead, Maggie.
It was Leanna.
Oh,
I was just gonna, I love the opportunity to meet in person. And if I could piggyback on that last comment you made, Kenny, do you mind if I interject? I think, each of us has had probably a learning curve around acceptable limits of change within a desired amount of time. And I think that there's, we know traffic calming is an impassioned topic because it's personal safety, right? It's scary to be on street, where your human flesh is the only thing that protects you from careening vehicles going really fast, whether you're on a bike or on foot or whatever. I think, we should consider realistically how much public engagement is appropriate, given how much people care. In that it could set up false expectations around expedient resolution that might not be possible. So from a public relations standpoint, parameters would need to be set clearly and clearly understood around that, not to discourage participation, but to have realistic and productive views of outcome.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I wanted to offer.
That's a great point. Thank you, Leanna. That was well said, and a reality, I think. Kenny, did you want to finish? Did you have another thought that you wanted to finish?
It occurred to me that we spoke a little bit about parking and changing the city's parking minimums, and it might be a good time frame to follow up with the planning department and see what became of that, and how we can support it or be helpful or inform ourselves so we can help communicate what's happening and if anything's happening, and maybe take a deep dive into parking. That's another contentious issue sometimes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Great. What I might suggest, folks, would is there anyone that might be interested in working with me as sort of a ad hoc working group to begin planning the January meeting? Just give me a thumbs up if you might be interested.
I can't thumbs up, but this is Maggie, and I'd be happy to see what I can do, especially as council starting to think about our retreat, to just help everything reinforce each other.
Okay, and I see Randy's got a thumbs up. So I might reach out to folks just to get some support. I also want to recognize that when we do work meetings, I think we place a an additional workload on city staff. I know that engagement is an important part of their job, and I know that they're happy to do this. And no one from city has complained to me. They've been always joyful in doing it, but I do want to recognize and thank that our public meetings or work meetings have a greater burden on city staff. So we should keep that in mind as we go forward. But thanks everyone, y'all, for your comments on that. I'm glad that there's a general sense of enthusiasm for those meetings. And at this point, we'll carry on. So look for more information about how we might structure that. And I don't want to quite commit yet, just so we have an opportunity to kind of, juggle the trade-offs and make sure that we're thoughtful before we schedule it. But I love the idea of January, and I love the idea of any one of those topics. We're going to move on right now to the last item under new business, and that is the Haywood Road resurfacing project. And in a moment, I'm going to turn that over to Brendan Merrithew of the North Carolina DOT and his colleagues at NCDOT that might be joining him in the room as well. And I just want to point out, I just want to share the context that the planning is complete. There's not an opportunity to change what's in the plan. We decided to include this agenda item. I believe that was per Joe's suggestion. And I thought it would be important, and Kenny Armstrong as well, as we were preparing the agenda, felt like it would be important to make sure that we're informed about what's happening on this resurfacing project and, potentially see if there are any lessons for us as future ones that come up. So I'm going to turn it over to Brendan at the moment. Brendan, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm up here. Can you hear me?
Yes. And Brendan, will you pronounce your last name for me?
You did it just right.
Okay.
It's Merrithew.
Okay, awesome. Okay.
And I said, I'm there. I was there. We were in a different room. I don't know if anybody noticed. We dropped off, had some technical issues. We had checked the camera previously, and we had to move to an office, and my laptop camera isn't set up. So I apologize for that. I'm in the room here with Chase Carver. He's our design engineer and worked extensively with the folks in Raleigh who put together the contract for the Haywood Road resurfacing. I'll just give you a quick little overview of the project. Hopefully you're familiar with it, but as the name implies, it is a resurfacing project. Just like the city, all our facilities are on a rotation to be resurfaced over time. And when we do that, as Randy was mentioning earlier, there's an opportunity to assess the facilities and see if anything can be, or considered at least, to be changed. So the striping, based on the use of the corridor or the segment of road. And so that's exactly what we've done. Good. I'm glad to see you've got some, you've pulled up some of the plans.
Yeah.
That are
I've got it pulled up.
Thank you. They are available right now. The contract has been advertised, so all the different plan sets are available to see in PDF format. And so during this resurfacing planning process, we engaged with a lot of folks here, the city, the MPO. I do want to thank city staff that's on now, Lucy and Anna, and I know Chris was here earlier. And also, you should know that council members Ullman and Roney were very, kept up with the project and helped and contributed. And then, of course, we have, I mentioned the MPO, Asheville on Bikes, citizen stakeholders, WABA, the West Asheville Business Association, Iwana, neighborhood representation. We did try to, schedule meetings and get input from a lot of different folks out there. And so the culmination of all that input and help, we do have a set of plans up, and I'll just highlight a couple of things in general. And it's been a great conversation about the traffic calming. We do, as if you don't know Haywood, the corridor out there, There's a few spots or a spot or two where it's currently posted at 20 miles per hour, but other sections, mainly the east end and the west end, I should say, this segment we're talking about goes from Patton Avenue or US 1923 to Rock Hill, or the curve as it's known locally. So it's a good 2-mile stretch, and being a large stretch of road, the kind of the use of the corridor changes a little bit along the way. It's not just one uniform, one size fits all restriping project. It was sort of assessed like, you know, what happens on the east end is different from the central portion, is different from the west end. So where it's currently posted 20 miles per hour, we're going to keep that and then reduce everything else to 25 miles per hour. We're adding, as you can maybe see on your screen, there's some little call outs with a pedestrian walk sign noted at different intersections. Those are the RRFBs, or the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. You've seen them hopefully in various places. A pedestrian or any kind of road user who's either on foot or otherwise can approach the sign, push a button, and lights start to flash. That alerts drivers, hopefully alerts drivers that a pedestrian may be crossing or is in the vicinity. Those signs are positioned at both sides of the crosswalk and flash in both directions. We are adding bike lanes in both directions on the corridor, from Patton Avenue to roughly Sulphur Springs, and then the bike lanes will drop out at that point. There will be sharrows throughout the corridor as it proceeds through the sort of what we call the historic section. That's sort of tighter. There's less right of way there, curb to curb. In the middle section, more developed to the curb, if you will, or closer to the curb. There just wasn't room to continue the bike lanes necessarily. There was a parking downtown, or down, if you consider the sort of like a downtown area of West Asheville, was needed to be preserved, for the businesses, but also neighbors expressed some concern if there's less parking on Hayward, that pushes out more parking into the neighborhoods. So the bike lanes would drop out roughly at Sulphur Springs. There would be the signage and sharrows, and then they will pick up again the bike lanes, the full bike, on both sides at roughly Michigan, or Richmond, I'm sorry, after the 240 bridge. There will be some pedestrian, what we call bulb outs. I don't know if you see them called out on this plan sheet, but it's sort of a little, you may have seen them in areas where there's like a little curbing that's kind of put out into the street, if you will. So a pedestrian, particularly if there's cars parked around, they can walk out. It's almost like they're starting to cross the street, but they're still on basically a sidewalk and an ADA compliant curb ramp. They're out a little ways, not just in the street, but they're hopefully a little higher, more visible to cars, especially again if there's cars parked around them. We've all had that incident where we need to cross the street, maybe it's a crosswalk and people have parked right up against it, and you kind of feel like you have to poke your head out and see what's coming the other way. So hopefully that will help with that. And then we are doing some upgrades to a few of the pedestrian signalizations on the corridor. As I mentioned, the project is advertised right now for an October 15th let, which the let means that's the day presumably we get bids on the project for construction, and that's the day the bids are open. So around the 15th or a few days after, as we assess the bids that we hope to get, we'll know more about whether or not we're going to have a successful bid on the project. If that happens, if the contract is awarded for construction, we could see activity start out there as early as the end of November. The window for this to be constructed is November of this year to roughly November of 26. So that's a 2-year window. It sounds like a long time, but that gives the contractor some leeway. They may have other projects going, of course, and also with resurfacing, there are a lot of restrictions based on the weather. You can't just, especially asphalt, do that at any time of the year. So although the contract will open up for the contractor to start in the end of November, we may not see a whole lot happening until early spring. There are some things that can be done ahead of that in the colder weather, presumably if we have colder weather. But again, they will have that window to do the construction. And then during that time, we know this is disruptive to businesses. That you all have probably seen it in places like Merriman Avenue and others. We do coordinate with business owners. Tomorrow, Chase Carver, who I mentioned, is in the room with me. We're going to speak with WABA, the West Asheville Business Association, at their regular meeting, as we've had, certainly lots of questions about how the construction will work, what to expect. And then outreach will continue in that respect, particularly to, the folks in the area. Once it gets passed on to our construction office. I think that covered most of what I want to do as far as the schedule, the current status, and the overall improvements. There are, like I said, it's a 2-mile corridor. We have made some changes that maybe can be seen on these plans. Some things, of course, we could not do. We did talk about traffic calming, speed humps, speed bumps, speed tables, raised crosswalks, a lot of great suggestions. Typically, as maybe some of y'all that have worked with the NCDOT, we have different approaches. We have a big emphasis on maintenance. So snow removal can be a big issue for us. And so typically we don't do speed bumps or, areas like that or similar on our facilities. But it was a consideration. It was something that we all talked about. I will say some traffic calming measures that are, as a parent, might be, so where we're on the east side, where we are adding bike lanes, that's a 3-lane section with that center turn lane. We're taking out the center turn lane. We're gonna, in lieu of that, we'll have the bike lanes. So when you look at the facility out there currently, and you get a lot of comments about the speeding out there, when you have that center turn lane, which honestly isn't used, for certain times of the day, is, fairly empty. Folks who are driving an automobile feel like they can sort of scoot over a little bit into that center turn lane, get away from where the cars are parked, and you feel much, more free to travel, maybe faster than you should be. So this will provide a little more, friction, if you will, with the striping out there. And I'll also note that the travel lanes will be 10-foot wide out there. We're reducing the automobile travel lanes to a consistent 10-foot. I know on Haywood Road currently you've got places where, because the pavement maybe isn't marked, where it feels like you've got 14 feet out there, or you've got 12 or more. So that will kind of reduce that feeling of driving through a wide open, unrestricted area, if you will. Anyway, I think that's all I wanted to cover. Like I said, Chase Carver, our design engineer, is here. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to address them.
Thanks.
Try to address them.
Thanks, Brendan. I know that this was short notice and didn't give you a whole lot of time to prepare, so we're grateful y'all were able to jump in and join us. So,
glad to.
Yeah, thank you. And we do have a couple of people in the queue, and I think Randy is up first, and then Joe. So, Randy, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, Brendan, thanks so much for presenting this, and I do want to give kudos to NCDOT in the past, and sometimes warranted, and maybe sometimes not. We give NCDOT a lot of hassle about implementing complete streets policies and vision zero policies and things like that too. But it's good to see that, and I know you're always thinking about this, and I know you're always trying to make things work, and it's good to see that the improvements you're making in this situation here for bikes and pedestrians and car drivers, to be honest, because if they're going to go slower, they're going to be less likely to cause so much damage to each other when they hit each other too. So thanks so much for all the hard work on this. On the part that we lose the bike lanes, is that the 20-mile-an-hour section too? Because honestly, if there's parking on the roads and it's 20 miles an hour and bikes are in the middle of the road, it's a great traffic calming as well.
I believe it is. Yeah, I'd have to look at where exactly the signs start, but yeah, Chase is nodding his head here. So we say yes, because it is that, that, again, I mentioned more like the central, where the historic or at least eligible area is. And I did forget to mention, this project is a resurfacing project. So typically with that, and certainly with this project, we are not buying right away. So there was no option to kind of widen a little bit or do, tweak any sections like that. We had no ability to purchase right away with this project. So it's all, restricted curb to curb essentially.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And when I ride in that section there now, I mean, I do take the lane and I ride at the pace I'm riding, and traffic is generally pretty respectful of it. And I think that definitely is sometimes a more effective way to calm traffic down by making it narrower there with the traffic, with the parking, and then bikes being in the traffic lane because they can't, don't have room to be you can't ride next to the cars in the door zone. So you have to ride out in traffic. And like I said, I'm probably there once or twice a week, and I'm just, things go slower there. And I think that sometimes it's okay to have that, because if it's just naturally more slower moving traffic because of the road conditions, that's oftentimes the best traffic calming solution.
No.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Randy.
Especially if things keep moving, because I think a lot of people are surprised, when they get behind a bicycle and then think, and then realize, wait, I got to keep up with them because they're doing the speed limit. So,
Joe.
Yes, thank you. And Brendan, really appreciate the effort to help us understand this. On sheet 10, if you could go to sheet 10 at the around station 105, they're opposite Builder's Source, across from Battle Cat. As you probably are aware, or I'm sure the Business Association will make you aware if you aren't, often we see multiple deliveries of semi trucks filled with lumber and various other building products queued up in the escape lane that's now in the center. Have you had any discussions with them, or how do you envision?
Yeah, we had a public meeting and notified folks of the project, and we received input.
They're going to have to stage their deliveries differently. I'm not saying it can't be done, but that's a huge impact to that stretch there. And I hope that,
Sure. Like I said, so we had a public meeting. We took input from businesses, and we've been working with WAVA now for several years. Getting input on what they'd like to see out here. We also, hold on one second. I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so the bike lanes. We discussed that in our meetings with our stakeholders, and the bike lanes were, made sense there. That's the direction we're going.
Well, again, they've participated in the discussion. So apparently they're willing to change their delivery schedules or something, because obviously they'll be blocking a full lane if they
we did get some input from other business things more centrally that delivery trucks would use those center turn lanes, and a center turn lane is not a delivery zone.
Right.
It's part of the
part of the
roadway.
So. Yeah, they queue up periodically in there. Anyway, where is the Business Association meeting tomorrow? Can the public attend that?
West Asheville Library. It starts at 10 o'clock, and I don't know if they're if it's a public meeting or not. Honestly, I don't know where they stand on that, but it's a public library.
Thanks very much, Jack. Thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Any other comments or questions for the NCDOT staff? All right. Well, Elise, go ahead.
I'm just happy to see more pedestrian bulb outs at some of these crosswalk locations.
Thank you, and thank the city, for that, their support of it. They entered into a maintenance agreement. If you know those bulb outs, they have a kind of a trench drain, because you're putting a sort of a protrusion at the curb line so the water can't flow. and the city agreed to maintain those, which was integral in getting them installed. So that's really the city deserves the kudos for that.
Are there any, Kenny, your hand's up, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Brendan, do you mind touching on that a little bit more? The city portion of it, like what might this have looked like without the city jumping in and volunteering some extra input?
Yeah, so like I said, so those bulb outs, and then typically, as many of you know, when working on a project with the NCDOT, sidewalk maintenance is often left to the municipality or the jurisdiction that facility is in. The city also, instead of our standard ADA curb ramps, likes to use the cast iron truncated domes instead of sort of the composite or other materials that we put in. So they are paying for the difference in those. And what else? I mean, other than just the input and the knowledge that went into how the design went as well. So I'm just naming some of the work, the maintenance, and the contribution to what's out there. But the input and the support has been great. I mentioned council members Ullman and Roney earlier, and certainly everyone at the city staff level that has helped us or helped the project.
Anna, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah.
Anna Sexton, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Anna Sexton. I'm a planner in the transportation department. And just wanted to continue Brendan Marathu's sort of comments and conversation. I think that the city would be remiss as well if we didn't acknowledge a lot of the efforts and coordination and willingness by DOT to think about how this project could be approached beyond just sort of a traditional resurfacing project. This is a project that was already fairly well baked by the time I joined as city staff, but I know that when it was beginning, there was a lot of conversation and a lot of efforts on DOT's part to think about how to incorporate some more complete streets elements that typically don't find their way into sort of standard resurfacing projects. So just want to make sure that acknowledgement is out there as well, that there's been a lot of really positive momentum on DOT's part to get to where we are today.
Thanks, Anna. Any other comments before we move on to unfinished business? Okay. Thank you, Brendan and NCDOT staff for joining us. Really
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We're moving on, y'all, to unfinished business. And I just want to make a note that Bill Loftus has left the meeting. He had a work commitment that he couldn't get out of, and he is doing that. So I just want to let folks know we still have a quorum. Unfinished business. First item is the intercept survey for greenways, and I'll turn it over to Commission Member Joyner and city staff Haley Burton. The two worked together. Thank you all for the hard work that you've done to do it. Will you tell us what's up?
We need to get Brendan.
Yes, I'm good.
There we go.
This is Leanna. I understand we had a little bit of shifting schedules near the first day of the intercept survey. But I don't have a complete report, and I am excited to hear about the impact of intercept survey team lead from this group and from the Active Transportation Committee, as well as the Bike 10 volunteer impact too. So I don't have a lot to contribute. I'm looking forward to hearing from Haley.
Yeah, Anna, go ahead. Your hand's up there.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in.
Great.
Haley, I don't think is on the call right now, but she did give me some sort of nuggets or a very high level summary to share with you all. What we're going to do today is just really gloss over sort of some numbers in terms of volunteers and shifts, et cetera, and then come back at your October meeting, I believe, with more detailed like presentation on tabulation of all of the results. So I'll talk about both the intercept surveys and the bike ped counts. Both happened the second week of September. Our bike ped counts happened either Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think the 10th, 11th, or 12th, and then on Saturday. And then the intercept surveys happened on, I think, the Wednesday of that week and Saturday as well. For the intercept surveys, we had 8 different survey shifts. We had 2 sites on Reed Creek Greenway and Wilma Dykeman Greenway. So weekday AM, weekday PM, weekend AM, weekend PM, for a total of 8. We had 22 volunteers show up. 7 of those were either from Multimodal Transportation Commission or the Active Transportation Committee. So thank you all, and kudos to you. And then we're still, like I said, working on tabulating all of the responses, but had around 315 survey responses from that effort, which is amazing. And she said that most shifts had around 40 survey responses. And then for our bike ped counts, this is something that has been done annually for well before I even moved to the city of Asheville, let alone started working in Asheville or for the city of Asheville. But this year we had, I'll call them shifts, like 44 count shifts. And I say shifts rather than volunteers because we actually had a couple of volunteers who volunteered for multiple shifts at multiple locations, which was a really pleasant surprise and really grateful for that. So we had 44 count shifts that were completed across 30 different sites, and approximately 40% of our volunteers were first-time volunteers. So that's great that we're getting the word out and people are interested in doing this. And then we also added 5 new count sites this year, in addition to all of the count sites that we had last year. I think with the exception, we didn't count at Hendersonville Road and West Chapel this year, but we added sites at Hilliard Avenue and Biltmore Avenue, Pfeiffer and McDowell Street, Amboy Road and Lyman, Meadow Road, Bleachery Boulevard and Swannanoa River Road, and then Overlook Road and Springside Road. And some of the reasoning behind that is some of these locations have had recent pedestrian improvements, whether that be pedestrian signalization, or some of them are going to have upcoming improvements, like the Swannanoa Greenway or the Greenway Connector Project, crossing Ashland and McDowell. And then we also wanted to think about how we can continue to expand data collection in South Asheville, which traditionally hasn't had a ton of count activity in the past. And so Overlook Road and Springside Road are at an intersection that is on the GAP plan and is also near, I think, a couple of different schools and a lot of community activity. So wanted to start establishing a baseline down there. So that's my summary for you all. And we'll have more details at the October meeting. You're on mute, Jack.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for all the work of city staff and especially the volunteers that got out there. This is really important work. Randy, comment or question?
Sure. Yeah, Anna, no, thanks so much for all the work you put into it. I know that it used to be Bike Ped did a lot of that, and you're taking over a lot of that now too. So thanks for that. And also thanks for including some of the Southside locations too, because that area is, I mean, there's actually 4 schools in that area, on the Overlook area right there. So it's a huge nexus for potential bike and pedestrian activity. And because of the lack of facilities, it's almost exclusively dominated by motorized vehicles. And so we're slowly adding sidewalks and hopefully, I mean, you know, the transportation, there's many bike lanes also that are supposed to be added to some of those major roads as well too. And I know it's a long haul, but it needs a lot of attention. And so I'm glad we're giving it more. So thank you for including those.
Kenny.
I just wanted to say how fun it is to be out on the Greenway with awesome city staff, of course, but also just it's really cool to park yourself for an extended period of time and just really observe and watch and see the diversity of people using these facilities, and you know, old people walking their dogs and young people biking to school, and it's really, really neat. You know, we tend to focus on our use of a Greenway, but seeing all the other people that are out there is really, really cool and inspiring, and does make a really good case that these trails are well loved and well used. Everybody we talked to was like, we love the trail, and everybody was really happy to talk. And then doing the bike ped counts too is really fun. I did downtown for the first time, and it was awesome just to see how many people are out and about in our community.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think it's a great opportunity for us. I know folks are busy and are committed to many different things, but it is sometimes it's hard to feel that our work as a commission is making a difference, but here's an obvious impact we can have. I do think our commission makes a difference, by the way, but this is a tangible way that you can get your hands dirty. So thanks for including us, and I guess we'll replan when we roll around next summer or whatever. Thanks, Leanna, for helping organize this, and Anna, and special thanks to Haley as well, and all the other staff involved. And our next item on unfinished business, I think we hit it, bike ped counts with Anna Sexton. So we kind of combine those. Thanks, Anna. We're approaching, we're at 4:36. I want to use the rest of the time for committee updates. And let's try and keep these to about 3 to 4 minutes if we can, so we can get all of the committee updates in. Jared has stepped away from planning and zoning. Maggie, is there anything that you might be able to update us on P&Z? I know Jared's off to... Yeah, go ahead. I'll give it to you. Tell us what's up.
So yesterday was a really, really important day for City Council as we pursue zoning updates and displacement, because we had an entire 2-hour work session just on what that strategy is. And so it's a wordy slide deck that I can send out to the group after this, particularly what we're going to do for displacement, what our approach is for the regulatory reform. So it really puts a bunch of pieces together, because we can't just do upzoning, and we can't just do affordable housing, and we can't just do displacement. They all need to work together so that they're cooperating and not competing with each other as policies and incentives. So yesterday it was really pulled together for us, and it also showed the timeline of, now that we have this in the queue, what is the timeline to look at getting rid of parking minimums? What is the timeline to look at increasing our home repair program, things like that? And so it's just really good, I think, for everyone to understand, like, what's the goal, what's the strategy, but also the timeline, because I know a lot of folks in this group really engage across many committees and engage through city council meetings and public comment and advocacy. So it's a good heads up of, like, here's the plan, here's what we're doing. So very exciting. And you know, if Jared were here, he would point to the fact that P&Z is really going to be the lead collaborator with City Council and the Planning and Economic Development Committee of City Council for the regulatory stuff, the UDO, the zoning. And then our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee is going to work really hand in hand with Council's Housing and Community Development Committee. So those are kind of like the lead boards or commissions that'll dig deep, deep, deep in, but we acknowledge and know that within the series of things that are on the plate, there's other boards and commissions like y'all self or NAC or whomever, or that'll be more and more involved. So without giving a full highlight on what the slide deck said, I'll just say I'll send it around.
Okay.
I encourage you to give it 3 minutes, if nothing else, just to get a peek to see what sticks out for you. But hopefully you'll want to spend more time with it. It's a really big body of work projecting a very full and ambitious year of work.
Thanks, Maggie. Yeah, and please advise us down the road of where we might plug in terms of making, public comments or recommendations or actions, etc. So we want to be involved if we can. Thank you.
Yeah.
We will move on to the Transit Committee. Joe, I believe that's you to give us an update.
That's me. Bill left me high and dry. Transit, the last transit meeting last week was concentrated on, first of all, we went through the various staff updates and reports from the work of the staff on maintaining and enhancing the art program, the art operations. But we spent quite a bit of time talking about the rescinded funds that were offered by the county from federal grant funds that could not be expended this fiscal year. A total of about $967,000 net to the city in rescinded funds. Now, the council voted yesterday. Maggie, can you or anybody who was at the meeting, did those funds pass?
Yeah, the way that, so yesterday the vote from council was to accept them. So legally when money moves around, it has to go through our board. So we said, yep, we're going to take those monies in, but it was not a determination of how to use the funds because a lot of the funds used have actually not really a policy purview, it's a staff direction. However, staff is engaging with council and I believe some other committees to say, hey, here are the recommendations. Here's what we're thinking about using these funds on to gain some input.
Yes, thank
Amber,
you.
Joe, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Amber,
give Amber an opportunity to chime in.
Yeah, Amber and Jessica made a great presentation on the recommended uses of those funds, which, if I may, Amber, just quickly summarize.
Of course, go ahead.
These are priorities the staff believes are important to go ahead and fund with these extra dollars. First was purchase of an additional bus in the FY25 period, about $655,000, which is no small ticket item, as you all can imagine. And this would allow them to reach their annual goal of purchasing 4 to 5 buses a year. The second one was to implement a 6-month pilot project, adding peak hours to the S3, this South Asheville route, to include 2 additional trips in the morning and in the evening, so that we would essentially see how demand is met on this pilot project. Additional cost for that recommendation is about $62,000. Relatively small number, but could potentially result in tremendous benefits to workers and folks reaching or needing to reach South Asheville. The third was a mobile fare payments option system that they would like to implement for $250,000, which would enhance purchasing of tickets and annual passes by riders with an ongoing annual cost of $90,000. Those 3 items total about $967,000, which the staff is moving forward with the receipt of those funds. The Transit Committee wasn't in total agreement with these decisions to use the money for these purposes, but we understand the challenges that staff has in their present capital budget to do these kinds of enhancements that they believe are necessary. So I'll leave it at that. Amber, do you want to add anything?
Absolutely. I don't have much to chime in that you and Maggie haven't covered. I'm Amber Wagner. I'm the transit planning manager. Yesterday, the council did approve of accepting the 1.3 million at the net of 967,000. And their action was just to accept the funds, and individual expenditures, those actions will still go to council. We are going to continue to engage with our transit committee as well as the multimodal transit committee, or you guys, the MMTC, to keep you updated on not only more detailed discussions about the potential service expansion on S3 and the mobile fare payment and the recommendations, but we're also going to keep you posted. A lot of these, some of the conditions with accepting the funds were to continue to look at the county's request was the We2 connection between our service and the Enka Candler Trailblazer. That will be analyzed on the comprehensive operation analysis, as well as further service expansion in the guise under the master plan for S3 and S6. So we're going to continue to engage with the committees. This will come back for discussion and feedback. We had a really robust feedback at the transit committee. Joe summarized those well. And you'll be hearing more from us, and we appreciate your participation and engagement in this process.
Thanks, Amber.
Thank
and
you.
Joe, we're looking forward to hearing from the transit committee and from the staff in the future so we can support and advise. Thank you very much, y'all. Next up, is there an update from the Active Transportation Committee?
Hi, this is Leanna. I won't, it won't be a long update because we heard about the bike ped count and we didn't have a meeting in August, and the meeting we had in September was a mobile meeting. So we met at the Walmart parking lot and walked the route, or most of the route, for the Shenandoah River Greenway that is beginning construction now. And it's really exciting to see more come to fruition and think about the benefit that will serve in connecting important places along the east side of the city. That's the only update I have to share.
Cool. You all sound like the fun committee doing field trips and whatnot. We got to get our act together. Thanks, Leanna, for all you do and sharing that. Next update, Jake, do you have an update? I know we heard a little bit already about the rescheduling. Is there any other neighborhood advisory committee updates?
Yes, there is. So Monday was actually our retreat, not our regularly scheduled meeting. During our retreat, we were able to nominate our own Elise Martyr as the chairperson for the Neighborhood Advisory Committee. So round of applause for her.
Yay, Elise.
Elizabeth Lakis is now vice chair. And one of the things that wasn't mentioned earlier was there are going to be a few open vacancies within the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, and there was some discussion on how to best handle those. It looks like from this point forward, we're going to be looking towards filling those seats in January, now that the city is appointing those roles quarterly. So aside from that, I think that pretty much summarizes it. We did set all of our goals, or at least discuss a majority of our goals for the future. It was a fairly productive round this time.
Cool. Chair Martyr, anything you want to add?
No, thanks, Jake. I guess I'll just say that we came up with a couple of topics that we want to have our sort of work sessions on, with traffic calming being one of those. And we will continue to develop our goals at our next meeting in November.
Yeah, great. Sounds like I look forward to an opportunity to collaborate, on traffic calming or wherever that is. So let's keep our eye on that. That's awesome. Thank you all.
The traffic calming and the sidewalks are some really big from neighborhoods that I think there's a really great opportunity to collaborate with them and piece.
Yeah, totally. We should definitely be jumping on that. Cool. Is there an update from the I-26 Aesthetics Committee? There was no meeting held in August. Is there any update, folks?
No update.
Thank you, Lucy.
No,
You're
Mike's
still
not
with
on.
us? Go ahead, Joe.
No, I'm sorry. I just was gonna reiterate, Mike's not on. He's.
Oh, okay.
Remember that, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for your comments and always active discussion and thoughtful discussion. It is now 4:50. We have no other updates. I will now adjourn the meeting unless there are any objections. Are there any objections to adjourning this month's meeting? So